my heart. So I wanted to take just a moment to share my own story very briefly. I actually grew up with my grandmother and was raised in more of the 12-step community. And that really was the church of my grandmother's choice, was 12 steps. So I grew up with a lot of that. And I have so much admiration, and I'm a member of a 12-step group myself. At 18, and I'm originally from London, I was living in London, and I went to All Souls, which is a Christian church in central London, where John Stott was a rector at the time, and Michael Vaughan, and had a really fascinating experience there, and had a conversion experience at 18, and met wonderful people. Shortly after that, when I was just 20, I went off to skate in Europe in Holiday on Ice, as I'm a former professional ice skater. When I came home from, and all the time that I was in Holiday on Ice, I was going to churches in Germany and being invited into people's homes, and it was wonderful. When I came back from Holiday on Ice, a lot of my friends who were from All Souls Christian Church were very judgmental of the way I looked, and though my friends, because I was with a lot of gay people in Holiday on Ice, particularly the guys, well actually only the guys, right? But they just couldn't understand that, and so I felt a lot of judgment towards me and towards skating. And then I still was a Christian, went on my merry way, moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, and attended a Presbyterian church for a while, and then I took a class at the University of Utah taught by Professor Hagen. His nickname among the students was Hagen the Pagan, and the first day of class he had about 500 students there, and he said, "To organize religion, I say it's all bull." Right, so the next day, because we're in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it's predominantly a lot of LDS youngsters, although usually they go to the U and not to the University of Utah. But the next day there was like 100 people returned for the class. He had frightened off hundreds of them. And Professor Hagen challenged my viewpoint. I did not like that professor, I didn't want to go to class, I came home crying. I was so upset by what he said, and he shook all of that I believed to the core, and it made me really think about what I was believing. I didn't become an atheist, but I did really look at what I was thinking. When I came to Phoenix, I was kind of searching for something that would fit me. And then when Ron and I got together, my husband Ron, we were also looking. We went to a few places, and our dear friend Jerry DeShazo took us to, or invited us to go to a religious science church. One of the things that had always disturbed me, and particularly after my coming back from Holiday on Ice, was that, this is the only way, and you can't have these, your other friends, and I traveled a lot, I'd been to India, I had Zoroastrian friends, and it's like, well, why can they not be right as well? Why can't we all be right? Why can't we all, get along, right? And so that this was the only way, you're only going to this wonderful place if you believed in this way. That had always kind of disturbed me. So when I walked into this religious science church and saw all of the faith symbols up on the wall, all of the main faith symbols, I'm like, oh, I like this. Nobody's wrong. We're all right. We all get to be who we are here, right? And so I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. And then shortly after that, a few years after that, I got involved in Arizona Interfaith. And even though today I am a religious science minister, I really think of myself as someone who loves, respects, and supports all spiritual paths, all religious beliefs that are life-affirming and that are supportive of creating a wonderful world for all of us. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. And so now it is your turn to ask any. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's now our turn to ask any of our panelists a question. As we don't have a mic, just speak loudly, please. Yes. Right in the back.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So my question is, when you all made the conversion, right? You converted from where you were either atheist to believing in some religion. How did for you to understand it differently, and it's another thing for the other people around you. So how did you feel?
Thank you.
Let me.
So just to very quickly for the video that we're creating, so the question was how, when the change was made to become another, to follow another faith tradition, how did your family react and how did those around you react?
In my particular case, this occurred during the 60s. Black Beautiful, Black Power movement. People were not surprised at all with that. There was a lot of opposition against the war in Vietnam at that time. It was a natural fit. My family had no problem. In fact, nobody had any problem with that. Even when I was incarcerated, they saw me for what I was, as a political prisoner. There was no shame associated with that. It was a place of dignity that I brought to it.
My mother was a student of world religion, history of religion, sociology of religion. She was a Quaker, so she often defended the unification movement to her friends. She wasn't a proponent necessarily, but she defended the concept of following the faith of your choice ardently and faithfully.
For me, it was different. I think most of my family members were very shocked and disbelieved that I would become a Christian. My friends at school couldn't believe that I had the experience that I had. And even to this day, I think my family, they're all atheists, they're Cuban, so they were educated in Cuban, and most of them don't believe in God. So most of them have a hard time believing that I became a Christian.
On that same question? Well, the only person I really had to worry about was my mother, and she, as long as I didn't tell anyone, but if I told anyone when she was around, she was mortified that I would say that. So, but other than that, my friends tell me that they will pray for me. And I say, okay, sometimes, or sometimes I say, don't waste your time, depending on how I feel. But anyway.
My family's reaction was just ho-hum.
That's the question, Ed. You talked about the practice, but some of us might not know what that means.
Well, the basic practice, not necessarily religious practice, but the idea of Buddhism is, it focuses on being human. That's the whole focus of it. And so the idea of the practice is to set up a discipline. There's a certain routine we go through every day ritual-wise, but it's a philosophy and the idea of the kind of the battle between the greater self and the lesser self. There's this constant battle that's being waged, and that's part of what the practice is all about. It's just a daily routine that we go through, because you don't really reach becoming a Buddha as such, but it's a process. You contain everything within you. And so this whole idea of what we call human revolution is this constant struggle between the greater self and the lesser self, and that's really the practice, is to keep doing that all the time. Actually, Islam has a variation of that idea, which has a kind of a bad name. It's called jihad. It's exactly what it is. It's the same idea.
Because you feel like where you are now in your belief is just right and it fits for you, do you have the feeling that you want to go out, not to just share as you've done today, but to really get others who you know to come along with you to where your present belief is?
Was that for any particular panelist or for each one? Okay. So the question is, just for the video, that because of the panelists may be comfortable where they are right now, do they have a desire to share that and get others to come along with them, or are they just happy where they are? And I think you kind of shared that already, right?
In light of where many African American youth are nowadays, with the use of the N-word, the black-on-black crime, I certainly have become a strong advocate for the Nation of Islam. There are a lot of young black males whose father has not been around, and there's no sign that he probably ever will. But the Nation of Islam has a very unique way of helping young males become men, giving them the pride, giving them a sense of community, take care of your family, don't expect anything from the government, lift yourself up by your own proverbial bootstraps. I would certainly be an advocate for that. And when I come across young males who are asking me which way to go, that's the direction I give them. I don't talk about Sunni Islam all that much because these black males must have an acceptance of who they are and a love for themselves. Orthodox Islam, to me, will not give you that. The answers, the prescription must be more precise and more focused on who they are as African American males in a world who only sees them as a problem, a threat, or a statistic.
For me, I would have to say yes and no. Yes, because I've experienced something so wonderful that I want to share it with my friends, but no, because I grew up in a very oppressive government, so I'm very careful of how I talk to people and how I push my beliefs on people. When I left Cuba, I learned that many of the things that I had been taught and forced to believe were wrong. So I have a lot of humility in my own life, and I respect people's journeys and where they're at. But if they ask me about how I was able to get through the difficulties in my life, how did I overcome my husband's death, how am I okay after that, I can share with them my faith. But again, I'm very respectful of where people are at because of the circumstances under which I was educated.
That's a wonderful question, and it reflects to me one of the many paradoxes of faith. I'm not really that comfortable in my chosen church, but it's my community, and community is very important to me. And through my studies in the last few years, I realized I don't have to be a perfect unificationist. I can be an imperfect practicer of my faith. And so this paradox between being an advocate or proselytizing, I honor everybody. I'm much more comfortable honoring everybody's faith and whatever uplifts and supports you. And I also think that my faith has something important to add to the conversation. And so that's a kind of a paradoxical dilemma for me, how to put that together.
This is actually a big issue for me. Let me make clear when I said that I became an activist. I became an activist not in trying to get others to believe as I do. I mean, we could debate about whether religion has, if there have been wars fought or other kinds of things, but I'm never, and most people that I know that are atheists are not interested in getting anyone else to give up anything that they believe in. But I am an activist about carving out space in the public square or with public policy, etc., where religion is not what directs what goes on, so that it is neutral for all of us to feel comfortable as though government, we're all getting a fair shake. So when one religion pushes its need to direct public policy and laws based upon that one religion, I'm surprised actually that more other religious people are not offended by that. Because even if you're, let's say, you agree with some of the things that have gone on with the very most fundamental religious people, Christian religious people, there are moderate religious people that don't believe some of those same things. And it's as though they're saying that you're lesser because you do not believe as I do. So I think it's insulting to even people of your own religion, because religion and belief systems are as unique as each of us. It's one. So when you try and have one thought to be forced on others, I believe it's very insulting. So my activism is to try and remove any of those influences from the area of life so that we can all live cooperatively.
Quickly. I can.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The idea of sharing, yes, it's, Buddhism has been very beneficial to me, but pushing, no. There's a real difference. I don't mind sharing, but it's up to the individual. And put it very well, I'm a big believer that there are 6 billion religions on this planet, if you will. Religions, in quote. Everybody has their own unique path. What's right for me is not necessarily right for somebody else.
And actually, for me, I don't really find that I push it at all. I really am a huge advocate of interfaith, though, and given any opportunity to share that, I will. And I think there's a really interesting saying that says we can be interested or interesting. And I find it is a challenge sometimes, but I really want to learn more and be interested in others and ask people the question of how does your faith include and have respect and tolerance for other faiths? What things is your faith doing that enables you to have more love and kindness and empathy in the world? So those are things that I find fascinating. And any opportunity I can get to support interfaith, that is truly a huge passion for me. Who else had a question? Someone have? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right here.
I'm
Go,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Go
You go ahead, because you also already asked one, right? Yeah.
I'm caught between intellectual thinking and my heart
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being an interfaith person. When I grew up, whether it was 10 miles away was the Irish Catholic community. To the left, over south, was the Methodist community. And over north was the Lutheran community. And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, as we change, as a whole world, there's so much information available, good and bad, to kids from 5 years of age on, so that we don't anymore grow up, like Catholic through high school. I was a Mennonite through college, before I really threw it out and then came back to what I believed. And I guess I'm wondering, as you see your friends and neighbors and family, the instant information of all of these religions, how do you see that affecting religious thought, spiritual thought in the future? Is that positive or negative?
So the question was how the
The information is now, we're
Right.
having 500,000 things every 24 hours.
Okay.
How does that affect our own spiritual pilgrimage
Okay.
as compared to when we were younger? We had, I and all my neighbors thought this way, whether it's in Cuba or southeastern Iowa, because we didn't have room as Christians in southeastern Iowa for the Catholics.
Right.
My dad said, I won't get a new car when I'm 21 if I don't smoke, drink, or date an English girl.
Yes.
So there's that, and it wasn't just me, it was, I don't want to talk about that. It was the instant information versus our pretty well
Got it.
isolated.
Thank you. So the question is how the availability to instant information about other faith traditions and everything that is available on the internet at a moment's notice, how does that influence us?
My experiences have been, as we encounter challenging times, it slows us down. When a loss of a loved one, an accident, challenges to our health, it slows us down, and it's all that information that's coming ever so rapidly. We find that we look for our niche at all that morass that's taking place. We slow it down, and there we find ourselves. So even though it's coming at us quickly, it's only when I believe it's when we have an encounter that we give pause. Saw a bumper sticker one time that says, "God is dead, long live God." And I understood that because the God that I thought I knew when I was 15, 16, was up in the clouds someplace. The word computer didn't enter my mind, but he had some way of keeping track of what I did right and what I did wrong. And at the end of life, the tally would be shown, and I know if I'm going north or if I'm going south. But long live God is the adult mindset that we have as we grow older and we find ourselves. And oftentimes it takes that that malady, it takes some illness, it takes some confrontation to get us to know that God does exist in some way, shape, or form, and may he/she live a long time.
For me, when I became a Christian, it was very difficult to reconcile what I knew in my mind and what I had in my heart. My mind didn't allow for the experience that I was having because everything that I had learned had set up to that point that what I was feeling was impossible. So I consider myself a thinker. I think I have the responsibility to be educated and to be part of the world that I'm in. So as a Christian, I continue to study. I love to hear stories of people of other faiths, and that's why I'm here today. But I think that because you are religious or because you do have an encounter, as he said, it doesn't mean that you stop growing and learning. And for me, that quest led me to England. I went to the University of Oxford and studied there because I wanted to learn how do great thinkers and scientists reconcile that which I had in my heart, with all the knowledge that they have. And I found that that was very possible. There are many thinkers and there are many scientists that are Christians. So for me, the more I learn and the more I become educated, I guess in some way it has allowed me to accept what I feel in my heart. Because there is a large community of Christians that are thinkers. There's a large community of Christians that are scientists. And I'm glad to find that out as I go along.
I'll answer it in a typical Buddhist way, being in the middle. It's both bad and good, I think. There's a lot of information, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there about a lot of our different faith communities. So we have to grow as a species, as human beings, to be able to handle both the information and the misinformation. Anne was talking about the misinformation about atheists. I mean, it's very common. But if you get to know atheists, you'll find out that they're very good people. So
Some of them.
yeah, it's just like some Buddhists are crazy people. So it's important for individuals to take responsibility to make sure that they get good information. And that's one good thing about having a lot of it, is that you can find out and take different take classes or go to different things like this, for example. This is one really good way to get rid of a lot of the misinformation, is to go to seminars like this and listen to both sides, listen to different sides.
I just wanted to say one quick thing. Some religions are lamenting that when their children get up into the high school and college years, is that they lose their faith, so-called. But for example, for me, I didn't realize that there were people who were free thinkers that were non-believers in God until I got into college. Because all the way through high school, that had never been presented to me as an option. So I guess from my point of view, what I think would be best is if in schools we taught comparative religions, but it must be, you have to be very careful with this, because it has to be taught from almost an anthropological point of view, strictly as the study of what they are, and then let each person find that resonates with them as they grow older, that they can adopt. So for me, I think that would be best for people, as opposed to keeping secret and generally saying all those other people are wrong, and to keep people sheltered, and then when they finally are exposed to other information, sometimes they radically change their mind.
Any other questions? Yeah, oh, wow, yes, thank you, and then Anne, yes.
Well, my question is, how do your individualized faiths shape the way that you live your life differently than how you lived your life before, in all aspects?
Great. Excellent. Let's start down this end now.
I think for me, it has made me a more compassionate person. I think in some ways before I was very judgmental. My father had raised me to make my own choice when I grew up. He was an atheist, so he wanted me to make my own choice when I grew up. But inadvertently, he never exposed me to Christianity. So like she said, I was only exposed to one side. As I became a Christian and I read the Bible, For me, it's very important that I live my faith in my life, and that I guess, take care of people that are less fortunate than I am. I'm an advocate for victims. I'm in a committee in the Supreme Court of Arizona for victims' rights. So I think if you've had a life-changing experience, you have to carry that and share it, not necessarily by telling people about it and articulating it, but by living it. I'm not the same person that I used to be before I became a Christian. I am a changed person. And I, of course, try to live my life the best that I can, but I think compassion and love for other people are the greatest changes that I could say happened in my own life.
What comes to my mind is the word global. I know my sister from Cuba has problems with Fidel Castro, but my history has shown me that Fidel Castro played a big part in supporting the ANC, the African National Congress. He sent troops to Mozambique to help the Mozambicans free themselves from the Portuguese. He's been a person that's been very supportive of African people who do not have the wherewithal to help themselves. And I know quite well that the United States put the African National Congress, they saw them as a terrorist organization. So my religion has helped me to become more global and to see things for myself and ask the question, what is in the best interest of myself and people that look like me, versus the company theme that's going to read one way and it has mesmerized and directed people so erroneously for such a long period of time.
For me, one of the main differences is that Buddhism concerns itself with the human condition, the human being, and to be concerned with the here and now, and not worry so much about the hereafter, and make this planet a better place and to bring about a great world. And part of that is incumbent upon each of us to do that. We're the person that has to change. If you want to change the world, the place to start is with yourself. And the other thing that really is driven home to me is something that our international president has said a number of times, and that is that religion should serve people. People shouldn't serve religion. And so that's something that we all should remember, no matter what our persuasion is. It's that we're there to serve others and not necessarily to have them serving us.
And I'd say for me, very briefly, compassion, love, inclusivity, like underscored 3 times, for all sentient life, and love, and a deeper awareness and peace. Yes, positive outlook on life. Anne, you had a question?
Oh, just a quick question for Lucia about mysticism and how that connected you back to all faiths. If there's just a quick little explanation of that, please.
I'm struggling a little bit. I'm touched by your question, and so I'm just meditating on that. I'm a mystic more than I'm anything else. And so you may not see something in my lifestyle. I can't really translate it directly to lifestyle. I'm sort of quoting from Carl McCollum's book, the big book of Christian mysticism. And he said that because mysticism deals with that internal experiential aspect, not lifestyle, not belief system, not social system, not political activism, but it's just the interior experience where beyond words. And that's where we seem to have something in common.
Beautiful, thank you.
We had one, this will be our last question, but I know you had a question, your hand up.
My question is, how important do you think labeling yourself as something is?
Great, excellent question. So the question is, how important is labeling yourself as something, as a particular faith tradition? Who would like to start?
Let me answer that. Not so much from a faith position. There's Kwanzaa is the only non-heroic, non-religious African-American celebration. Some of you may have heard of it before. The second principle of Kwanzaa is Kuji-Chakalia, which means self-determination. To define for ourselves, speak for ourselves, and name for ourselves instead of being defined, spoken for, named for by others. In that respect, it becomes very important. We have 24-hour news service. The media is always attempting to define, the media is always attempting to define a person based on what somebody else did. They may look like me. If I wear a hoodie, I'm a black male, I'm driving a car. If if I'm in the state of Florida, somebody can feel threatened and boom, you can shoot somebody and hey, I felt threatened by him. So that has to, religion has to play a part, but it has to be an undergirding. It has to be something that raises my awareness of my condition. If it puts me into a false sleep, it does no good. It becomes exactly what Karl Marx said it was, the opium of the oppressed. But if it heightens me, if it awakens me, if it helps me develop a relationship with my fellow man and fellow woman, it's serving the purpose. If it helps me walk in a way where people will look at me and say, I admire who that person is, his integrity, her character, well then it's done its job.
Anyone else?
I'd like to say.
Yes. Who wants to go?
I think it's very dangerous to put a label on yourself, but at the same time, you have to be truthful as to who you are. You know, when I speak about being Cuban, people can make assumptions about what I believe about the revolution or Fidel, and that may not be necessarily true. So I think the moment that you label yourself, or you say, I am a Christian, people can make assumptions about you. So it's kind of dangerous because people don't give you the benefit of the doubt, if you will, and they can tend to be dismissive of who you are and judge you based on the label. But at the same time, I think that we need to have words that describe the majority of what we believe and who we identify ourselves as.
It's also an interesting question. I found comfort in reading about mystics, and I can say, oh, I'm a mystic. So you could call it a label, or just finding a community, or finding that there's people that have gone before me that have had similar experiences and helped me to understand what I'm going through.
Oh,
Well, I'll just say, for example, and this is a big debate that goes on about atheists, because atheist doesn't tell you anything. It tells you it doesn't tell you what I believe, it tells you what I don't believe. So it's not helpful. So that's where humanism comes in, which is a positive affirmation about human beings and doing good, but without a supernatural influence. So for us, the label sometimes is important.
what a fascinating afternoon. Let's give all of our panelists. We won't have a faith forum in March, and Paul will tell you why, but we will be back in April, and our topic then will be the death penalty. So I know that is something that will be very fascinating to hear different faith traditions on that. And then in May, the topic will be parenting. Paul's going to take the microphone now, and please come up, greet your panelists, but allow us, as per usual, just a few minutes to get a photo for our website with all of our distinguished panelists. And thank you for being here this afternoon.
This has been a wonderful day, and I want to greet all of you that are here. I have a special, I don't know how many, I think most of you know my wife Sybil. Tilly, if you must stand, please. And just this week we have with us, Sybil and I have with us, one of our daughters, Dr. Stephanie Epping. Stephanie is a psychologist, and she is the director of military sexual trauma patients at a VA hospital in Virginia. And her husband, Lieutenant Commander Leon Crane. Leon is a retired Coast Guard officer, helicopter pilot, and any of you that saw the movie The Perfect Storm, you know, The Perfect Storm, and saw the helicopters down there rescuing people, that's it. That's what Leon did. So I want to welcome Leon. Mitzi said that in March we will not have a Faith Forum because we are having our annual Golden Rule Banquet on March the 25th. We have invitations up here, and you can come and get one and see about it. And you can get this one that shows all the people we're honoring. Last year we had 700 or 750 people there. We're looking at probably having 900 to 1,000 people at our banquet on March the 25th. Really, really hope all of you can come. Now because of that, in March we're not having Faith Forum. But on April the 8th, usually we have the Faith Forum on the third Tuesday of the month in April. It is April the 8th, and your mind is saying very quickly, that's not the third Tuesday. The third Tuesday in April is Jewish and Christian holy days. This building will be closed. So we are having our Faith Forum on April the 8th, and the topic is parenting from different faith groups. Death penalty, sorry.
They're a little different.
Little different. Death penalty. In May, on May the 20th, third Tuesday of May 20th, the topic will be parenting. And we'll be doing it exactly as we did here, a different faith tradition presenting, not trying to persuade anybody to do whatever, but simply representing who they are. Now then, we have up here, because some of you are here for the first time, up here on the table, we have calendars, religious holy days of 2014. Under each month in red letters are the holy days of all of the various faiths: Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Baha'i, Jain, Christian, Jew, and everybody. So these are available for you. The invitations to the banquet are here. We'd love to have you take one. Our brochures of who the Arizona Interfaith Movement is and what we're all about. And then we have 3 books that we've published that are here, and we invite you to check those. Anything, and Nancy, that I forgot?
Experience Interfaith, October 30th.
Experience Interfaith is October the 30th. That's an event where we come together, the Sikh community, who started 500 years ago in India. The major social issue they were confronting was the caste system, high caste, low caste. They said, we've got to show that everybody's equal. So in their worship services, they have everyone sit on the floor. There's no chairs, there's no pulpit, there's no choir loft, there's no altar. Everybody sits on the floor to worship. They still do that. 500 years ago, they said, after every worship service, we'll serve a free meal. And you don't have to attend the worship service to get the free meal. Now, that goes completely against the beliefs of the Baptists. They come sit in the church service, okay? But in the Sikh community, the rich man could sit here for that free meal. Poor beggar could come off the streets and sit next to him, and a woman and a child. Everybody says, well, they still do that. Sikh community is an incredible community. And for this interfaith experience on October the 20th, October the 30th, thank you today, several Sikh people in their local church, their local Gurdwara, own high-priced Indian restaurants. They prepare the food. So it's not some little old guy out the backyard stirring up a brew. It's these high-priced restaurants. These high-priced restaurants that are preparing the food. They will serve us the food. We'll be sitting on the floor. Now, we'll have a few tables for elderly and people who can't sit on the floor. go sit on the floor, then we break into small groups and discuss different critical questions from our faith traditions. That's on October the 30th. So thank you, and thank you for coming. Take any of these things as you open. We've got to charge you for the books, but everything else is free. But thank you for coming, and we hope we will see you March the 25th at the